Hello guys, Kowalski here, and in this video I'm super hyped because I'm watching this everything I'm watching live, and this game Magnus Carlsen is down 1-0 in the blitz section, and so he has to win this game with the black pieces in order to win the game. So let me flip the board and see what happened. So Wesley played e4 and you have to go for c5. I mean, you don't have to go, but this is kind of the most confrontational opening, the Sicilian. Knight f3, and here we have this, again, kind of Rossolimo style. This is actually the Moscow variation. Um, Wesley, they have both played this. I won't bother too much with the opening because it's all pretty much well known. So this is kind of something not that standard. After some moves, you will see this knight takes on e5. This begins to, make the position a little bit weird. d3, e6, and after some moves, we have this position where after Magnus castles, now you have 8 pawns. The position is just closed. What are you gonna do about it? So we have rook b1 by Wesley. Of course, it's very important in the future. This file will open up. Knight to d7 now, defending this c5 pawn. In case captures, you can capture with the knight, and this pawn will be defended, and also the bishop. So bishop e3 now, putting additional pressure. Okay, for now you have this bishop also defending, but queen to c7 now, adding another defender, and rook to b2 now, preparing to double up. C takes on b4, breaking the tension finally. A takes on b4, and now a5. B takes on a5, and Magnus actually pre-moved this move. B takes on a5 because now he has an outside passed pawn. So let's see if Wesley can win this pawn or if he can stop this pawn, because if he can win this pawn, then he's probably going to hold the game. Remember, Wesley only needs a draw. So we have knight b5 now, jumping with the knight in, attacking Magnus's queen. Now we have queen back to d8, and Wesley plays queen to c2. So all well, the position is equal. And now Magnus plays this bishop to c6 move. Now he begins to create a little bit of chaos. Here Wesley also makes pretty inaccuracy. He goes for rook to a1. Better move was maybe knight to a7, or maybe something like break in the center, such as d4. So we have rook to a1. Wesley, of course, fears the power of this passed pawn. And now we have h6, Magnus creating some breathing room for his king. Magnus actually thought a lot about this move. He thought for about more than a minute and a half. Knight to a7 now, and queen to c7. Now Wesley is ready to, Magnus is ready to give up his rook for 2 pieces. Knight back to b5. Knight back to b5, queen c8, h3, and now knight into c5. Magnus, if you capture the knight, Magnus will have the bishop pair, and suddenly this pawn will be much harder to stop. If you try rook to a2, simply f5, and then you break also on this side, attack the f2 pawn. It was going to be something crazy. So that's why after this knight c5 we have rook b to a2 right away without capturing the knight, and now a4. And this pawn is actually defended by a tactic. Because if you capture the knight and think that you can capture the pawn, you actually cannot capture the pawn, because in this position, again, black would have f5. Another thing that doesn't work, but you have to take in consideration in positions like this, is maybe a move like bishop takes on b5, pawn takes on b5, and now bishop takes on f2. Of course, this doesn't work in this position because you don't have to take with the king. You can take with the queen, but just in general, you have to watch out for tactics like this. So after this a4 move, fearing this f5, this opening up the bishop pair and stuff like that, Wesley played queen to c3, saying that in the future, if he goes for f5, then he's gonna have queen takes on e5, and he also has pressure in this moment. But Now Magnus goes for knight b3. He attacks the rook. Wesley also goes for knight a7. Now he attacks the queen. So Levi Rosman says danger levels, and of course Magnus doesn't blunder his queen. He plays queen to d7, now attacking the knight. And now we have knight takes on c6 by Wesley. Remember, this is the blitz game, so these are not the most accurate moves. Knight takes on c6, queen takes on c6, and now again this pawn is defended, the rook is attacked. What is Wesley going to do? Rook to b1, and now Magnus goes back with his knight to d4. Maybe perhaps a better move was queen back to c7, just guarding the pawn, or maybe something like f6 to guard the pawn. Essentially, the engine wants you to guard this pawn, but Magnus, under time pressure, he goes for knight d4. f4 by Wesley. Here he should have taken the knight and this pawn, and then maybe like the game would have been very much different. We would have seen bishop c5, queen back to a1, and some other moves, rook f to d1, and again a completely different game. But instead we have f4, which is a blunder in this case because of f6 and not because of f6. f6, maybe you can also go for something like bishop c5, again keep the tension, but f6 is the main reason that this doesn't work, because now Wesley takes the knight, but it's too late. He takes and now you have to go back with the queen, because of course you cannot capture now. Queen to bishop to c5 will simply pin the queen to the king, and there's no way of saving the queen. So queen to c2, but now just a3 by Magnus, and you cannot take this pawn anymore. c5 by Wesley, trying to block, but simply queen takes on c5. And now Wesley is lost, because queen takes on c5, bishop takes on c5, and now it doesn't matter. Instead of bishop e2, maybe you could have played something like rook b5, bishop d6, e5, rook f to b8, rook captures, bishop captures, and bishop e2 only then. But then still f takes, and bishop takes, and your Magnus will win this up 2 pawns. This is a winning position. So Wesley tried to keep some pieces on the board, bishop e2, but simply rook f to b8, now rook c1, rook b2, and of course you cannot capture the bishop, you're gonna lose the rook and of course the game. So bishop g4 was tried, but after f5 Wesley resigned the game, as there's nothing more to be done here. For example, if you try to capture the pawn, simply rook takes on a2, so this doesn't work. If you try to take the rook, then simply pawn takes, and after you block you take the bishop. And if you try to do anything else, defend the rook, then it's sorry, not that right away. First take the rook, and then after rook captures, then take the bishop, because if you take the bishop, then you're gonna have rook captures, and this check, and then this is a draw, because you cannot push the pawn and you cannot defend. Or maybe this not exactly is a draw, this might be a win here if you capture the rook. But anyways, this did not happen, so Magnus won the game. This was the final position, this was the final position, and now they are gonna go into an Armageddon game. So stay tuned guys for the Armageddon game. We'll see you guys in the next one. Kowalski out.